Hello and welcome to Solopreneur, the show that helps business owners who are flying solo to solve their big sales, marketing, and systems challenges one episode at a time. You can watch the video version of this episode at solopreneur.com. I'm Gareth Everson, and on today's episode, we're going to be talking about how we deliver on what we've promised to deliver as part of that sales process, or as part of that process where we're adding on services or projects or deliverables into that client's project and work. The challenge here is knowing when to be able to say that the work is finished. Or if it's not a self-contained project where it has a clear end, and actually the purpose of your work with the client is to continue working with them, the challenge is, how do you get that client to continue to see that you're delivering value to them? So those are the two big problems. Projects that we want to end, ending, and projects or client relationships that we don't really want to end and we want them to be on a retainer, still continuing to see the value. So let's get into it. How we deliver our work for our clients is the D at the end of Lemonade. So we've been through the process of signing them up as a client, welcoming them on board, working out if there are other areas that we want to provide add-on services or products for. This is now down to the nitty-gritty of doing what we have promised to do for them and making sure that we're doing that in a timely fashion and in a way that they can see that we're delivering value, and being really clear with them of the work that we're doing. Those are some of the challenges that solopreneur businesses face when they're managing clients. Listeners to this podcast are working in a variety of different settings. You might be working with homeowners, you might be working with individual people, you might be working with businesses. You might even be working with something completely different to those three. But if we take those three, all of those three settings have their own complexities. Homes have different things that go wrong with them. Businesses have all sorts of different factors that can impact how your project gets delivered. And if we're talking about people, we have all sorts of different scenarios going on in our world, or different problems that we might face if it's something that's more medical or patient-related type activities. And that can create complexities for how we deliver what we have said or what we have promised to deliver as part of our engagement. So one thing that I want to give you guidance on here, and this impacts every single expert business that's out there, is to try to keep what you do with that client or that patient specific to what you've talked about in that sales process or in that add-ons process that you've had. I've talked about it before, the curse of expertise that we have. The curse of expertise in regards to how we deliver our work manifests itself around us identifying a wider issue or a secondary problem, or perhaps even a third problem associated with what's going on in that person's life, in that person's business. And then feeling or taking it upon ourselves that we have to fix that additional issue as we go, but without having the conversation with that client, with that patient, around some costings for that. Our curse of expertise and our desire to deliver a great result and a great outcome for somebody and a solution to whatever those problems that they have is sometimes that we take on too much as part of that work with them without it being scoped out or agreed that it's going to be paid for. And if you don't have that agreement in place, but you brought it up with the client, their expectation, their default expectation, is probably going to be one whereby they think that you're just going to solve it as well. So that's one huge area that I just want to share with you to try and avoid and try and bridge that problem before it happens. So that's the one huge area of problem that expert businesses face when it comes to delivering what they say they're going to deliver and how they're going to deliver it. The other really sizable issue with regards to how we deliver the work that we've promised we're going to do is when it comes to how we communicate the progress that we're making with somebody. We talked about it before when we welcome new clients into our world. You've built up momentum with that client, and they've built up a relationship and a trust in you as part of that sales process. But the biggest cliff drop moment, the biggest moment where they're at the most vulnerable, is when they've either committed to work with you or even spent money to work with you and perhaps not seeing that momentum continue because you've moved away, you've moved into that delivery phase where you're beavering away to move something forward, perhaps not even that present to the client, to the patient, to the homeowner, and you're working on something behind the scenes that they're not particularly aware of. In their mind, they can be thinking, what's going on here? Why isn't this person that I've hired doing the things that they said they're going to do? They might not be aware that there's a planning process, that there's a preparation process underway. So it's ever so important as part of this whole delivery piece that we're in regular communications with our client. You can pick the time framing for that. For some clients, you might need to do even daily communications. For others, it might be weekly communications or bi-weekly communications, but I wouldn't leave it beyond that weekly or that bi-weekly sort of cadence for how you communicate with that client. And the reason being is that if you do leave it, even if you are being really diligent and working behind the scenes on their projects, the story that they'll be telling themselves in their mind is really quite different to the story that you're telling yourself as the expert that's working on these problems and challenges that they have. So, if anything, over communicate with them what you're working on as part of that process. And the way I'd encourage you to do that is to manage that from your CRM system. I wouldn't do it from your regular emails because there's no real audit trail from that. You need to have in place some sort of either project management system or even a CRM system where you're able to communicate directly with the client from that piece of software so that everything that you're doing around that project has an audit trail around what you're working on. The fact that you've got this far with me on the podcast suggests that you're not the kind of business that leaves your clients or your patients or the people that you work with in limbo. The fact that you've got this far suggests that you care enough about delivering great customer service. If you're not, then welcome. I hope you've learned something along the way. But if you are that expert that really cares about the experience that your client has and what you deliver for them is absolutely top notch, I can't stress enough to you that being an active communicator on these activities is what's really important. So there are 3 takeaways from this episode for you. And you can see the takeaways at solopreneur.com/EP15. The big takeaways are these. 1, that you don't fall into the curse of expertise and just take on work that you've found along the way that client or that patient or that homeowner needs doing without agreeing how you're going to do that for them. Don't end up in this realm of scope creep. Even if you are taking on a client where there's retainer work involved in this and you want to have this client on an ongoing basis, make sure you form an agreement with them about how you're going to do that work. So that's the first thing. Avoid scope creep. The second piece in this is make sure that you are communicating, or perhaps even over communicating, the status of the work that you're doing for those clients. Make sure that, especially early on in the process, that they're clear about the activities that you're going to be undertaking for them in order to deliver against the problems that they've got, and you being able to solve those problems that they've got. That should mirror really nicely with your onboarding processes that you had with them as part of that new client process, the N process that we talked about in Lemonade. So there should be a really nice mirror between what you've told them that you're going to do when you brought them on and how you deliver that work and how you communicate on that work as part of the delivery process. The third takeaway is that you both find clarity in expectations and reality of what gets delivered. That you're really clear with the problem that you're solving in the first instance, and that you bring clarity to them if you discover other things along the way that might need resolution. And always think in mind of, does this fit within what we've talked about and what we've agreed that we do as part of that first project or any add-on projects? And if it doesn't, make sure that the client is aware that if they want you to address these challenges as well, here's what it would cost, and cycle back into the process that you followed around adding on services into that. As I mentioned earlier, people, businesses, and homes are really complex entities. So we almost need to go into this with an expectation that things will come up along the way as we work with our clients or our patients or homeowners. And having a process to manage those additional things will be the difference between clients feeling that they're getting a great experience with you and clients feeling that that you're not delivering on addressing the problems that they came to you with in the first place. The difference between expectation and reality, unless there's a process around it, is driven by what's going on in that client or that patient or that homeowner's mind. So in the absence of a process, they will come up with their own process and their own definition of what success looks like. And that's what I want to leave you with as we finish this episode around how we deliver our work. Episode notes for this are available at solopreneur.com/EP15. And I'd love to get your feedback on if you've had challenges in this area, if you've had particular breakthroughs in this area in your own business. Do share those with me via the link on the website. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Solopreneur podcast. Remember that what we learned today builds more value if there's a plan to take action on it tomorrow. So head to solopreneur.com and check out our growing community of action takers and all the training and software that you need to build a scalable business without breaking the bank. And if you value the show, please help others to discover it too by leaving us a review wherever you get your podcasts, or by sharing a link to an episode on LinkedIn or wherever your finger does its scrolling.